All right, welcome everybody. Hello, my name is Josh Blackman. I will call you by your first name if that's okay. All right, what's your name, ma'am? Tell me the facts, please, if Pearson be post.
In Pearson Post, originally, or what happened was, Post is suing Pearson on the grounds that
But what happened? You gave me the lawsuit. What are the
Yeah.
actual facts? How did this case begin?
Post was printing a box with his
Okay.
funds,
Okay.
and in pursuit of doing that, Pearson saw that and he went ahead and took advantage, saw the fox, and killed him. And now
He killed who?
the fox.
The fox. Okay, not post.
He
Okay.
killed the fox. He took possession of the fox, and that is what brought the case here.
Okay, very good. So Reagan, so we have this conflict, right? So again, who's the hunter in this case?
Post.
Okay, Post is the hunter. Okay, and who is Pearson? Do we know much about him?
Kind of just seems like he was in the right place at the right time.
Well, was he though? How did he just so happen to be at the right place at the right time? Why was he in the right place at the right time? So what's your name?
Wasn't he? Oh,
Yeah.
Joseph.
Joseph.
Wasn't he coming home from work or something?
I don't think that was in the case. But going back to the point with Reagan a moment ago, what do you think Pearson saw when he showed up? What did he see that maybe caused attention? Why was this area so interesting for him? No, one at a time, one at a time. What's your name, man? Shelly. Why do you think Pearson just happened to be here at this moment? What about this situation might have appealed to him? What did he see? What did he do? What did he end up actually doing? Right. But what did he see that led him to do that? In other words, why did he take advantage of this situation? What had been happening prior to that? Searching him? Lynn, what situation did Pearson take advantage of here? Was he wounded? Who wounded him? Did Post actually make contact with the fox? So how did he wound him? Is that in the case? So what's your name? Carl. What situation did Pearson take advantage of in this case? Who was pursuing the fox? Post. Okay. And what did Post do that helped Pearson? Is this thing very important? No, it's very important. What did Post do that allowed Pearson to get to the fox? There's no injury. It's not in the case. Ma'am, what's your name? Jasmine. Okay, and what did the hounds do? They were chasing. Okay, and what does it mean when hounds chase dogs? What was the effect of that chase?
It was the fox was running from it, so it was already
On the run. Okay, is that Abigail? And so because the hounds were chasing the fox, did that make it easier or harder for Pearson to get to the fox?
made it.
Wow, why harder?
The hounds are probably faster than him.
Well, oh, sure. But where were the hounds chasing the fox from? Do you think foxes just usually sit around waiting to be eaten? What do you think was going on? What actually were the foxes doing?
Well,
know it mentioned that he had a decoy pond with ducks.
That's a different case. That's actually a very different case from a different country, in fact. Okay, Kelly, what were the hounds doing that was helpful? Why does a hunter use hounds? That's a better question. Okay, but what is it the hounds are doing? Chasing them to what end? What's the goal of a fox chasing of a hound chasing the fox? What are they trying to accomplish? Corner. Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for, right? The hunt by post with the hounds was designed to help to corner the foxes, right? Was trying to put them in a place where they can be captured. If the fox was in hiding or in a tree somewhere, right, you can't get to him. The purpose of the hunt was to help corner the foxes. Now, is that Walter?
Yeah.
Walter, let me ask you a question. Did Mr. Pearson have his own hound?
No.
No. What did he have?
With a trap.
That's not in the case.
No.
You guys are making up facts. Give me a minute. Alex, what did Pearson have? He had nothing. Was he a hunter? Did he have, the dogs and all the other stuff? So let me ask you the question this way. Could Pearson have caught the fox without Post's hounds? Okay, so now we're seeing the question, right? The only reason why Pearson got to the fox was because Post had been hunting with the dogs. Now what's your name? Shannon. Do we know how long Post was engaged in this hunt for? Do we know that? Is in the case we read anything about it? Do you know how many dogs he had? All right, fine. It's a good guess. We don't know, right? Just don't make up facts. Just if you don't know, say you don't know. Just don't assume. So, Shannon. So he had. We know how long he was hunting for. We don't know how many dogs he had. We don't know how close he actually got to the fox. Is that it? Is how close Post got to the fox? Is that the case? No. So he could have been out there for 5 minutes, right, and done nothing. We don't know. And this is a classic issue with law school cases. The facts are in dispute, right? Now, you may get this, but these guys hate each other, right? That's actually not in the case, but there's actually a long-standing feud between Pearson and Post. I mean, look, they're fighting over a fox, which was not worth much money. And they appealed to the highest court in New York. Does that seem like a waste of time and resources? You bet. But, well, I'll say this point. The reason why you all get jobs is because people need lawyers for dumb cases, right? People... It's true. People litigate things that probably shouldn't be litigated because they have, emotions and passions and so on. And that's why you guys get to pay for your loans one day, right? Seriously, it's full-time employment because people have, principle, and that's why people hire lawyers. But they really hated each other. All right. So is that Shelby? Okay. So Shelby. So I think we got the facts settled, right? Post was hunting with his dogs for some period of time. We don't know how long. He got close to the fox. We don't know how close. And here comes along Mr. Pearson, out of nowhere, shows up, no dogs, no hounds, and he kills the fox. We don't know how he kills him. It's not in the case. Did he use a weapon? We have no idea. It doesn't say. What did the lower court do here, Shelby?
Fox was his property.
But again, did Post actually make contact with the fox? Did he wound the fox? Do we know how close he was? All right, very good. So, sir, Jane? Blake. So, Blake, this case is called, and I have the reading up here, Pearson versus Post. All right, Pearson v. Post. Again, who's Pearson, who's Post? This is important.
The man that got the fox after Post hounds.
Very good. Why is Pearson's name listed first and Post's name listed second?
Because
Ma'am, you're late. Okay, go ahead.
because this is an appeal court, so the Post.
So who again? I think Shelby said it a minute ago. Who lost in the lower court? Post. No. Pearson lost in the lower court. Who filed the appeal? Right. Who files the appeal? The guy who won or the guy who lost?
Very lost.
Yeah, guys, just one at a time. Let Blake talk. Right. So this is just a useful tip. If you'll remember nothing else I say, remember this much. In an appellate court, the name that comes first, lost below. That's why it's appealing. Right. If you remember nothing else I say, when you get a case name, you're gonna not know who the heck who is who. They don't always tell you who is who. They'll say plaintiff, defendant, whatever, right? The name that comes first is the guy who lost below. So I think Shelby and Blake said it correctly. The lower court ruled against Pearson, right? The lower court held that pursuit, just pursuit by itself, might be sufficient to obtain what? Do what? Pursuit is enough for, man, what's your name? Kristen. Pursuit is enough for fill in the blank. Okay, you ready for this? What is ownership? What is right? You're gonna hate this one. It's going on for a while. There'll be more people. Just give it a go. What's it? What does deserving mean?
That's where mine stopped.
Ma'am?
Megan,
Megan, yes?
I would say occupation, it's like,
What is occupation? What does it mean to occupy something?
I would go down the rabbit hole of ownership, but.
Not the foxhole?
Yeah. Ownership, but maybe in the case of wild animals, I would say having it listing.
Oh, good reading of the case. All right. So I'm going to come back to that Liberty point in a few minutes, but I'm not done with my line of questioning yet. Ma'am, what's your name? Was that Olivia? Olivia, what's property? That's the name of this class, by the way. But what, criminal law is, right? What's property? What does it mean to own something? Who determines whether you own something? The law. So I mean, ma'am, what's your name? Oh, two Olivias. Look at that. Okay. Yeah, one semester I had two people with the same name sitting right next to each other. So it's two and two, both all the same names. Drove me batty. Olivia, in this case, right? Post thought the fox was his, right? Because he was hunting him, right? And Pearson thought, no, the fox is mine because he actually got in his hand. Which of them owned the fox? This is the ownership word that was used a minute ago. The other Olivia. Which owned the fox? So how do we resolve this dispute, Olivia? So what's your name? Cole. How do we resolve this dispute? I mean, look, I think Post makes a fair point. He's like, look, I was hunting with my dogs. I cornered the thing with my hounds. It's mine. And then Pearson makes the argument, well, look, I actually got the thing in my hand. If mine.
Maybe the first person to have a reasonable probability to occupy the
Well,
farm.
that's what the court holds, and that's actually the holding of the case, right? Actually, I'm sorry, that's what the dissenters hold. Actually, we'll get to the dissent in a minute. But my question is a little bit different. How do you decide law? Is what Olivia said. What's the law? I know that sounds like an awful question in the first week of law school. Nick, what's law? Who writes them down? Who writes them down? Who? No. Who writes down the laws? Okay. Oh, I'll come to the judges in a minute. But is there any legislation in this case that says foxes are awarded based on this rule? Fill in the blank. Is there such a law, such a statute? But the judges make law? Is that what judges do? I thought judges just interpret laws. Isn't this sort of the basic, it's clause rock stuff? The courts, legislature makes the law, President enforces it, courts interpret. Isn't that the really basic stuff?
The holding in certain cases can dictate how the other cases go.
Okay, all right, it's okay. It looks okay. What's your name, sir?
My name's Austin.
Okay, so Austin, it is true that courts do make law. It's what's often called common law. You'll see this in your readings the first semester and after. But courts can sort of develop law in a common law fashion. But how? In other words, if you're a judge, Austin, right?
Yes, sir.
Austin, you're a judge. You have these two possible rules. One, pursuit's enough. Two, you got to touch the thing. These are two rules. They both have some sense behind them. How do you as a judge pick the rule?
Think that you have to look at previous legal scholars and
Legal scholar, oh, Lord help us, the professors make the law. You guys are in trouble if I'm making the law. You guys are, you don't want that. You haven't met me yet, but you don't want that in any way.
the judges need to decide what is actually limiting the fox's freedom.
Okay, this back to liberty. This was the point made a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
But why? Why is that the standard, right? In other words, you have one rule saying pursuit's enough, another rule saying pursuit's not enough. How do you pick which rule you're going to follow? Jasmine? Not the Jasmine. You Jasmine, right? Two Jasmine. Oh, in line too. How do you pick which rule you're going to follow, Jasmine? Well, I mean, in this case, what year is this case? 1805, right? We're in New York in 1805. Now, maybe you remember American history. Something really big happened in the 1770s, but in this area, right? It was a revolution, right? So all the cases we have are from what country, Jasmine? England. Did the American courts look favorably upon English law, do you think? Not really. They kind of got rid of it. And even if the American courts looked upon the laws of England, are English laws governing this new country? Or we have our own laws? There's a question. Yeah. Which laws govern? The old English laws or our new American laws? Absolutely true, but did the United States adopt laws governing foxes? Are there any statutes governing this issue? Okay, very good. So we have this dilemma, and this is sort of what I'm getting at is the basic heart of our legal system. How do judges decide cases, right? One guy makes a rule, says, look, pursuit's enough. And I think we can all agree that makes some sense, right? You put all this work into the hunt. The other guy says, no, you got to actually catch it. And that also makes sense. Maddie, you're Justice Maddie. Congratulations, you got promotion, right? Or from orientation to the bench in like 1 minute. How do you decide which rules a judge you're going to adopt? What do you think about? What do you look at? What do you consider when you're a judge making this rule or this rule? Which one are you going to pick? Good. All right. So you said two things that I think are important. I want to just separate them. First, you said when there's no precedent, and that's actually correct. Is there any precedent governing this case? No, ma'am. No, there's not. So let's go to the second thing you said. How would this rule apply? How'd you phrase that? I can't remember exactly how you phrased it. So in other words, if we rule for post here, what will that mean in future cases? Okay. I can't read that. It's too good. Brianna, I'm sorry. It's a little font. All right, Brianna, let me ask you the question then. I think Maddie made a fair point. We try and look ahead to future cases, right? What happens if we adopt the rule that posts want? That pursuit's enough. What would the consequences be of that decision? What would happen in future cases?
Something that they weren't going to have any tip of it.
Is that good or bad?
It could be bad,
Oh, tell me, why could it be bad?
because the way they pursue it could be unlawful.
Okay, well, let's assume they're pursuing with their hounds the same way posted. Why is that bad? What's the downside of ruling for the hunter here? Mr. Smith, what's your first name?
Mr. Smith, I'm Jack.
Jack, thank you, sir. Jack, let me ask you this question, please. The rule that Post wants is that pursuit is enough, right? Now, this case from 1805, there were no cameras back then, right? He wasn't live streaming his hunt. How do we know how long he was actually pursuing the fox for?
We don't.
We don't.
And in this case specifically, I think it's referring only to wild animals and not
any sort of like other beast.
Domesticated
I
animals.
do think that is a very
Well, but let's just stick with the okay. So let's say pursuing wild animals. Do we know how long Post was actually pursuing the animals for?
we do not.
So what would prevent him from saying, "Oh yeah, I was hunting that fox"? What would prevent him from saying that? We have no cameras. There's no recording. Just he
It's,
said, she said.
like many other things, I guess you just have to take people at their word.
Well, do we have to take Pearson at his word though? We have to
Well,
trust Pearson.
I don't think that. I mean, are they disputing what happened with each other?
Go with it. Don't fight the hypo.
Like it's all agreed.
Do we
upon.
have to? No, don't fight the hypo. Do we have to just take Pearson's word? We have to just trust Pearson.
No.
Why not?
Because there's, he's a self-interested.
What does he have that Post does not have? The fox. And what's the fox? And what's the significance of Post having? I'm sorry, Pearson having the fox in his hand.
Corporal possession.
Yes, he has the evidence. He has the evidence. But think of it this way, right? If you adopt the rule in favor of the hunter, you're creating evidentiary disputes, right? There's no way of knowing if he actually was hunting. That's just a he said, she said story, right? We don't know how long. He might be there for 5 minutes, right? And the fox just happens to be on that spot just by chance. But we know who has evidence? Pearson. You know why? He's got the fox in his hand. And he actually skinned it. I think he made a coat out of it or something, right? He actually has the beast, the fox. So there's no evidentiary disputes. All right, so Maddie says, what's the downside for ruling for Mr. Post? You're creating a lot of work for the courts. Now let's flip it. Right? Now what's your name? Avery. Avery, what's the downside for ruling in favor of Pearson? I mean, again, we say there's clear evidence, right? He's got the fox in his hand. What's the downside? There's a huge downside there. Again, let's make the facts a little bit easier. Let's say that Post was chasing for 6 hours with his dogs and other stuff, and this jerk comes at the last minute and swipes the fox. Swipe or no swiping, right? Literally, it's hey Dora, I got little kids, right? And then what will that do? What would be the consequence of everyone else doing that? Would people still go hunting if someone could just steal their fox at the last minute? Because that's not.
Well, it's kind of just like not the.
I'm thinking of a word begins with the letter F. It's 4 letters, not that one. 4 letters, ma'am. Becca, what's the word I'm looking for? Fair. It ain't fair. Right? How could it be fair? How could it be the rule that I'm out there with my dogs in the 110-degree heat for 6 hours hunting a fox, right? Anyone not from Houston, by the way? It eventually got cooler, I promise. This is not usual. This is not normal. Usually by August, but again, you're hunting 8 hours in the blazing sun with all these dogs and everything else, and then this jerk comes at the last minute. Oh wow, there's a fox cornered. Let me just grab him. It's not fair, right? You're rewarding bad conduct. Whether or not you agree with Pearson's legal claim, he was being a jerk. Maybe not. Maybe he had a good story behind him. Maybe I'm being mean to him, but we can assume it's not fair. So you have these two competing values, right? On the one side, ruling for Pearson creates certainty. It's an easy rule to apply. You have the fox in your hand, you win. Congratulations. Right? So on the one side, you have certainty for Pearson. But then you have the theory for Post. What's that theory? It's fair. You're rewarding good efforts. You're rewarding what might be called labor. You studied John Locke. There's something called labor theory, right? You're rewarding people who expended labor and engage in a societal plus, right? Hunting, well, maybe disagree with that. At least at the time, people thought hunting was good, right? You were engaging in a important pastime. This was a hobby that people did. And if you couldn't be guaranteed to keep the fruits of your labor, then you wouldn't go hunting. Any hunters here? Maybe a couple. I guess we know. Yes, what's your name, sir? Joseph. So you're a hunter, right? What do you usually hunt? Here. So when you read this case, what did you think? Who should win in this one? You thought the hunter should win. Okay, well, tell me why. Good. So let me ask you a question. Let's say you were out hunting, let's say hunting for a deer or fox or something, and you cornered an animal and you were about to take it, let's say you just had a bow and arrow or something, not a gun, and at the last minute some jerk shows up out of nowhere, swipes your prey, and runs away with it. How would you handle that situation? And be honest.
To be honest, I was thinking absolutely.
All right, you're a good person. Let's see someone else. That's usually not the answer I get when they ask this question. Sir, was it Walter again? What would you do in this? You're like a good Samaritan, like
I think if you bring up a point, and it also is, are you on fair land or are you on
public. You're on a public park. Public park.
I think it's a matter of fairness. If you come out of nowhere and let's say I've been sitting in a bush just waiting for a deer to show up under a feeder for like 4 hours, and some dude rolls in on a 4-wheeler and just shoots it, I'm gonna get pretty upset. Be like, what are you doing? You know, I mean, I think it is a matter of circumstance, but for someone that's, avidly and actively trying to pursue something and someone comes along like Pearson,
Just not fair, right?
just takes it from you, it's kind of like, come on, man.
Anyone else want to chime in? In the back, Avery.
So if you're on public land and say like you're in a bush and you see an animal and someone drives up, how is that person to know that you're in the bush?
And again, there's issues of proof, right? So maybe Pearson would argue, well, I didn't know. I didn't see the dogs. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he's lying. We don't know. So I think this is a good discussion. So we're actually on the right track, right? So when you're a judge, right, you're only judges one day, maybe, right? And you got to pick a ruling. You have to favor, which value seems more important. Are we trying to reward fairness and not, reward the potential jerk? Maybe not. Or we're trying to have a rule that's easy to administer in the courts, and these are very different. All right, everyone get the values. All right, what am I up to? You've been dreading for a couple minutes, haven't you? Now, what's your name? Sarah. Okay, Sarah. So, the majority by Judge Tompkins. Which rule did he favor? Okay, tell me why. Okay, so the majority says that mere pursuit is not sufficient to have ownership. Sarah, why? Well, that's true, but what authorities, plural perhaps, does the majority rely upon to reach that conclusion? They're just making up, say, yep, I'm adopting true because it leads to good consequences. Can judges just do that, just make stuff up? They gotta cite something, right? What do they cite? What does the majority cite? What? What's common law? Sam, what's your name? All right, what authority does the majority opinion cite to reach this conclusion? Looking for some names here. Oh, there was no Supreme Court before this. Yeah, no, Supreme Court's only a couple years old at this point. Not U.S. Supreme Court opinions. Well, in the opinion, I mean, it's only a couple pages long. I know this was like 7 pages, but it took you an hour to read. Yeah, get used to it. You will not understand how long it takes to read so little. That's the biggest thing for one else. Like, wow, that's only 20 pages? Oh, 15 minutes. No. Hours. So what's your name? Daniel, what authorities does the majority cite to support its rule? What the heck? Oh, just go on the next one. What the heck is a Pufendorf?
Guessing it's the ancient writers.
Did anyone look them up? It's a good idea. If you encounter a word you don't know, look it up. If you encounter Latin, and there's some Latin in this opinion, you gotta look it up. Did you get your Westlaw password yet? Okay, so Black's Law Dictionary will become your friend. They show you about that? Okay, Black's Law Dictionary. You don't have to buy the paper ones like this big, but if you see a term in Latin, look it up. If you can't, just even use Google. It's better than nothing. But if there's a name you don't recognize, look it up. If there's a word you don't recognize, okay. So Justinian, Pufendorf, Grotius. Search name? Lucas. Who the heck are these people? Do you know?
So Latin, so I agree.
Yeah, they spoke some languages. Why are they being referenced here?
They seem to have some.
That's good. Anyone know anything about these guys? All right. The majority and also the dissent to an extent cited these various writers on the law. They weren't from the present time. Justinian was from long ago Roman law, right? Grotius and Pufendorf were various scholars who wrote on the law from different countries. Grotius was Dutch, right? So in the back, what's your name? Sarah? Okay, Sarah. Syra. I'm sorry, Syra. Okay, thank you. I try to get the name. I usually have my students with their first names on the cards. So it becomes a little bit easier. So let me ask you this question, please. So why on earth is a court in New York in the 1800s citing some Roman emperor? I love your answer. This class has nothing to do with the American Constitution. Why? But why are they pulling stuff from the time of the Roman Empire? I mean, why should the laws of the Romans govern New York in 1805? Yeah, I do something. Well, what's the advantage, man? What's your name over there? Nadia. What's the advantage of referring to rules from the Roman Empire and from scholars from hundreds of years ago? What's the advantage of looking towards this sort of old law?
So that when they make their decisions, it's based on principles that aren't created by them.
Oh, that's a good answer. But particularly, what's the advantage of really old principle? Why is a really old principle sometimes a good thing to rely upon?
I think specifically because it relates to how we want to run our government, to revise how the
Good. Let me ask you a question. Let's say there's a really old rule that people don't really talk about anymore. Think that's a good rule or a bad rule? Is there some really old rule that we don't even talk about, we've forgotten a long time ago? Is that a good rule or a bad rule? Not your question. It's a good rule. It's so good that we forgot about it.
It's so good that it is really great as part of our.
Well, but you actually answered my question differently. So if there's some rule that's become so well established that we don't have to debate it anymore, is that a good rule? Oh, it's the opposite. So what's your name? Ernest. If there's some old rule that became ingrained, as Nadia said, it's just as part of our legal system, we don't even talk about it. I think that's a rule that's been well established. Is that a good rule? Why?
It's been so well established that no one is arguing it.
Bingo. Perfect, right? And Nadia, you actually answered my question in reverse, so you actually got it right also. I'll give both you credit on that one. There are some rules that are just so old, and yet we still talk about them. We still study them. Why? Because they work, right? Legal principles stand for a long time because they're good principles. If there's some rule that doesn't work, we abandon it and we forget about it, right? The reason why we still read Justinian, Pufendorf, Grotius, hundreds of years, thousands of years later, is they had some smart things to say. Now, the flip side is, why on earth are we being governed by Romans? Who the heck care what Romans thought about foxes, right? We're in our new country. They want to see Hamilton, right? We got this new country, this new thing we got to do, right? Why are we still bowing to the emperors of Rome? I mean, their problem was, foxes hunting chickens, right? That's what they were worried about. We got this aristocratic fox hunt with these guys with the hounds and the coats and all this other stuff, right? All right. So the majority relies on a doctrine called first possession, which means, as the name suggests, the first to possess the object gets it. Man, what's your name? Haley? Haley, what does mancupation mean? Mancupation. You said it. It's in the case. Is that a guess? Well, you made a good guess, but you should look it up next time, all of you, right? Mancupation refers to bodily possession. That is literally laying your hands on it. And under the rule of mancupation, if you physically capture an animal, it's yours. Mere pursuit's not enough. Okay. And what's your name? Angela. What about mortal wounding? Let's say that, I throw a rock at the fox and I break its leg. And, a fox with a broken leg is not going to live very long in the wild. I didn't actually capture it, but I threw the rock and I broke its leg. And then who comes along? Pearson, the jerk, and he takes away the fox because I broke his leg. Did I physically possess the fox by throwing a rock at its leg and breaking its leg? Under the rule of first possession, would I prevail? No. So what's your name? Is mortal wounding enough under the doctrine of first possession?
I think at that point it could be argued that they should have liberty because it's not free to get out of the way.
Liberty. One or two people said that's exact. I told you to come back, didn't I? Told you. I try to keep my word. Liberty, right? So the court speaks of this term natural liberty. So what's your name? I can't read the Michael. Michael, what is this natural liberty that three of our friends have already talked about?
Because we were talking about
Very naturally. What does that mean? Yeah, wild animal, exactly. But what is natural liberty? That's my question for you.
so it's that they had
If you mortally wound an animal, you break the fox's leg. Is he walking away from you? He's not running away. He's not going anywhere. Have you, by mortally wounding the animal, have you deprived him of his natural liberty? Yes, you have. And when you deprive an animal of its natural liberty, what do you get, Michael? First possession. Perfect. That's the rule of the case, right? That's what the majority says. Mere pursuit's not enough. To have first possession, you must either capture the fox, or you can also mortally wound the animal such that it loses its natural liberty. Again, first possession can be had by actually capturing the fox, by mortally wounding it so that it cannot escape. You've deprived the animal of its natural liberty. Everyone see the holding. That's the majority rule. Okay. And what's your name? Sheena. Did Mr. Post, the hunter, mortally wound the animal here? No. Did he only have pursuit? He only had pursuit? So did Post win or lose here? Post lost the case. All right. That's the rule of the majority. Okay, let's turn to the dissent. Is that Sam? Sam, the dissent was by Judge Livingston. What did the dissent say?
The dissent says that
Did you read?
yes.
What did the dissent say? Who did the dissent rule for? We've said it a couple times already.
The dissent rule for Pearson
Okay, why?
because he
What rule did the dissent adopt? Ma'am, what's your name? Nakia, what rule did the dissent adopt? Oh, tell me what that means. What do you mean respectful, gentleman rule? Good.
Whatever tools that you have now, you should just say that it should be like a bystander.
Let me ask you a question, Nakia. Give me a good answer. Did the dissent even think this case should be in the courts?
No,
Where do you think this case should be resolved?
amongst themselves.
Amongst themselves. So this is what my friend over here, the hunter, and over here, right? You said you just let it go. He said he would maybe not to let it go. The dissent's like, what the heck are we doing here, right? Why are we here? What are we doing here? Why are we wasting our time? This should be a dispute submitted to the hunters and let them just figure this out, right? But, a judge can't actually say that because he has a job, right? There's a dispute, there's a case, got to do something, got to make a decision. So, ma'am, what's your name? Okay, so again, what rule did the dissent adopt?
Respect or like ethics.
But what legal? That's true. But what legal principle? Which writer? Which philosopher did the dissent adopt? Rely on? What's your name, sir?
Chase.
Chase.
I don't know the name, but he mentioned it was unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah, right.
That is just a hunter's rule that.
No. Is it? Was it? Was his name again? Joseph. What rule? What philosopher did he rely on? The dissent he mentioned him by name. You didn't read the case. That's see how that's a mistake. Yes, ma'am. But you're right there.
Sorry, I don't have the case with me.
Did you get it?
Yes, I read it. I don't know which philosophy he relied on, but for the he was more concerned with how the outcome of the case would affect the greater society thing, and that it was very important for that person.
Well, what theory did he adopt? And what's your name?
Melissa,
Melissa.
I think the barbaric one.
Barbarac. Yep, Barbarac. Barbarac. Barbarac was a student of Locke. If you don't know the name, just Google it. Give you 5 seconds, okay? What theory did Barbarac and Locke favor?
Should be on the courtesy or some relation.
All true, but what's enough? What's the rule of how to obtain a fox without actually physically capturing?
How would you start? If you start the pursuit, you should be able to.
Not enough to start it. You gotta do more than that. Your name?
Austin,
Austin.
you would have reasonably been able to capture it.
That's the rule, right? If you have a pursuit and you have a reasonable prospect of capturing the fox, you've obtained possession. Again, if you started the pursuit and you have a reasonable prospect of capturing the fox, that's enough. And so what's your name?
Kevin.
Kevin. Why did the dissent adopt this rule? Because again, he's sort of making fun of this case. Like, this is all stupid. Why did the dissent adopt this rule? What about this rule seemed appealing to him?
A little unfair, but alright, fairness.
Okay, there's an F word again, right? I actually don't like the word fairness, but that's true because everyone, if you have a kid, Daddy, that's not fair, right? Everyone thinks fair means something different, right? She's nodding, right? But right, he thought the majority's rule was unfair. And ma'am in the back row, what's your name? Lydia. Let me ask this question. How do we know if a hunter has a reasonable prospect of actually capturing the fox? How are we supposed to know that? There's no cameras, there's no live streaming, it was on Twitch, right? How are we supposed to know this?
I mean, I think for most hunting like stuff, you have to be educated to like legally hunt. Am I right?
Not in the 1800s, and I don't think
Right,
today
not
either. Yeah.
Yeah, there is no, I guess, just honesty to the person that they're going to question about it. I don't think there is.
So there'll be evidentiary disputes, won't there be? Right? And if I ask a question, how do we define what it means to be having a reasonable prospect? What does reasonable mean? We use this word all the time. Oh man, in law school, reasonable person this, reasonable person that. What's reasonable? Oh no, next to you. I'm sorry, what's your name? Savannah. What's reasonable, Savannah? What is it? Probably. What does that mean? How do we know if something's reasonable or not? So what's your name? What's reasonable mean?
I know in a person, you would say person is credible and reliable, but they generally rely
What would it mean to have a reasonable prospect of taking a fox, of capturing the animal? What does that mean?
more likely than
Uh-huh. What's reasonable mean?
I'm just Remington.
Remington?
You have a really good chance.
Really good chance. So he said probably more likely than not. Now it's really good. All right. Now we're almost done. I have 3 people's notes. I'm just going to finish up and we'll go to Q&A. And man, what's your name? Melina. Which opinion do you agree with more? Majority of the dissent. Why?
I think he kind of takes the approach that things should be improved.
What do you think should be improved? What does that mean?
Like going forward, there needs to be some standard. And
Oh, isn't the majority rule standard? You have to capture the foxes, and then that's an easy standard.
I think that they put the easy standard.
The majority took the easy standard.
Yeah.
So you think the harder standard should be followed?
Yes, I think it does need to be more in depth so that
Okay.
Who has control.
Okay. All right. So what's your name?
Tyler.
Tyler, which one did you like? The majority or the dissent?
The dissent,
Okay. Well, tell me why.
because it goes back on the morality between men, looking it out.
Morality between men. You got to tell me more. What does that mean?
That's kind of the ethics about it.
Okay.
Like like the respect between two people, like you should respect.
Does the law requires respect to our fellow man?
It does not, but society should.
Wait a minute. So are judges doing something apart from law? In other words, why are judges supposed to be making judgments on morality and ethics? Is that what the judges do? But do they do it here? I think he said it. Oh, we're talking about fellow man, respect. That came up several times, a couple of your comments. And my last part, I saw in the elevator, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Which one do you like better?
I like the defense.
Anyone want to defend the majority? Anyone? Whoa, I got like the three people not. All right. You know what? Finish it up. Defend the position you disagree with. Defend the majority. Go ahead.
They're in a situation where they're trying to establish some law. With the most clear cut, they also they use the same case or scholars and they point out that he doesn't actually go this far.
Oh, so you think majority's the dissent was a little fast and loose with the way they read the precedent?
Maybe a little.
Maybe. All right. Good. You're off the hook. All right. So that's what law school class feels like. How was that? Painful? Scary? Yeah. So everyone does this differently. You have your schedules already. You probably have your first, first batch of reading. I do exactly as I did with you. I go up and down the rows, and I can call on about 30, 40 people per class. Usually 1 or 2 questions per person. Other professors have specific students on call on a given day. Other professors cold call, and they just pick random numbers with a random number generator. Some professors ask for volunteers. Raise your hand. Unfortunately, you need to be prepared for whatever your professor likes to do, and there'll be different styles. My biggest piece of advice for you, and I mean this sincerely, is don't fall behind the readings and don't take shortcuts. You have a syllabus in front of you for your various classes. You might say, oh, well, it's only 20, 25 pages of class, reading per class. That builds up. If you fall behind and you're not prepared for class, it'll be very hard to catch up. If you miss 2 days of class, it's going to be really hard to catch up. And if you miss 3 or so days, you may not catch up, especially your first semester. Now, what will happen, and trust me, it happens every year, is you'll be tempted, enticed to take a shortcut. And what are the shortcuts? Well, maybe you had a friend who took Professor X last year, and they just give you their notes. Don't even look at them. The value of your notes, the value of your outline is not that you have it, but that you made it, right? The actual process of writing down your outline at home and in class is what ingrains in your brain, these were used earlier, what you're doing. If you just get handed an outline from someone who took my class a couple of years ago, you're not doing it. Also, class has changed, by the way. Different books, different cases, different focus. I've taught property now probably 20 times, and every time it's a little bit different. Whatever my mood is that day, right? Things are a little bit different. I cover different things. So don't use outlines from prior classes. You'll be tempted to buy commercial outlines and horn books. They're on sale in the bookstore. You can go find them there. They're not hidden. They're on a bookshelf for you to purchase. The library has them as well. Don't use them your first semester. That's my plea. If you use them your second semester, you might have a better sense of what's going on. But your first semester, I would strongly encourage you not to touch them because they'll make you lazy. Because you'll just read and say, oh man, I know the facts of the case. And look, maybe you'll actually be able to pass off in class having read the case by just looking at the horn book or the outline. They'll summarize the facts, you just read them, and the professor won't notice. I usually do, but it's you might skate by if you're smooth. You won't pass by the exam, right? It's just not possible. Reading the horn books doesn't let you really get the case. This PDF, about 6 or 7 pages long, wasn't very long. Probably took you 30 minutes to an hour to read, right? It's okay. Nothing to be ashamed of. But look, if you do the math, if it takes you, 30 minutes, let's make an hour, make it easy. An hour to read 7 pages. To read 20 pages might take you 3 hours. Okay. You have about 100 pages of reading a week. Okay, that's about 40 hours of reading a week. Just do the math. And if you fall behind, it's very hard to catch up. I'll give you another sort of factoid. I won't ask this question, but I know the answer already. So a survey was done at another law school where they asked incoming 1Ls, do you think you'll be in the top 50% of the class? I'm not asking you to raise your hands, but just in your head, do you expect in the top 50% of your class? All of you will raise your hand. You can't all be right. In fact, I can tell you 95% of 1Ls thought they were in the top 50% of the class. Half of them were wrong. And you don't know which half. And I don't say this to scare you, but you guys are all really smart. You're here for a reason. You all did well in college. You did well in your LSATs. You maybe never really had to work very hard in college. I coasted through and got good grades. I know. Look, I know. I've done this before. That changes today. You are now surrounded by people who all did well in college. All of you did well in college. You all had good GPAs. You're all the top of your classes. And half of you will not be in the top half of the class. That's just simple math. But you don't know which half, though, and I will make this point important. You might think that, oh, I'm going to struggle so much. In fact, the study showed, this is actually the worst part, the kids who thought they would do the best actually ended up doing the worst. They were all too overconfident. And the kids who were the most nervous tended to do better because they worked harder. So if you think you can sort of just skate by and coast because you guys are really smart, it's not going to work. Not for a minute. My next piece of advice, get to know your professors very well. I'm actually not teaching the first semester, so you won't have me yet. At least maybe next year you'll have me. But get to know your professors. It happens all the time that I have students that I don't even know who they are. I just know where they sit, maybe know their name. I never see them have class. And that's a deficit. You're paying a lot of money. A lot of money to be here. Now, some of you guys are in the online program. That's fine. Get to know your professors. Go to office hours, whether it's the virtual one or the online one or in person. Get to know them. You'll need letters of reference one day. And it's a lot easier to say, oh, yeah, so-and-so came to my office all the time. We talk versus, John Smith got a B in my class. That's all I know. That's not a very good letter. Is that your name?
Yeah.
I didn't mean that. I meant that John Doe. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I'm sorry. I just said John Doe. I'm sorry. That really wasn't deliberate, but come to office hours. Another piece of advice, outlining. Now, I know they gave you a workshop on outlining and you have some practice. Every professor wants you to outline differently, unfortunately. That's just going to happen. Some students take extremely detailed outlines. Some take more general outlines. A lot of it's also based on your memory and your recall. But if I could encourage you, start on the side of outlining more and then maybe decreasing over time. If you start off outlining less, you will find yourself at the end of the semester in trouble because you won't have enough notes. What do you do in class? And this is also, I think, an issue in which people can reasonably disagree. Some of the inclination is to write down everything the professor says. No one in this room is doing that right now, which I guess is good. But you have to learn the right balance of how much to write down versus how much to just sit and absorb. Some professors record their classes. I do, some don't. If a professor does record their classes and put them online, go back after class and watch and fill in gaps in your notes. It's hard, it's more time, but you don't always get everything on the first try. Okay. How to study. Some people study in groups, other people study by themselves. I don't have a strong belief. I think different people work better differently. But you'll get to know you people in your section pretty well. I hope you do at least, especially the online people. Hopefully you actually get to know each other. And it's actually a very important part of this process. Exams. I'm sure you know this already, but law school, you get basically one exam, the final. And that's pretty much 100% of your score. You've never had that before. In college, that's just never the case. You have homework, you have quizzes, you have midterms and stuff. You'll probably have a midterm, and I think most of the 1L professors give midterms. But the midterm comes, as the name suggests, over the middle of the semester. And that is your wake-up call. If you get to the midterm and you're in trouble, it's not too late to turn things around, but it might be too late. You really need to go to your professors early on if you're struggling. And don't say, oh, I'll catch up over Thanksgiving break. That'll never in the world happen. That's not humanly possible. No, it's not. It's just Thanksgiving. We finish class like the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Exams are first week in December. So there's really not enough time. All right. We have about 5 minutes left. After this, you're supposed to go to the Joe Green Auditorium, but I'm going to stop here, and you can ask me questions, and I will stay as long as you need for questions. If you want to leave at 2:30 on the dot, you can, but you don't start till 2:45 for your next session. So, questions? What do you want to ask? Go ahead. Yes, Maddie.
What's your tip for balancing such from undergrad where we have a lot of opportunity to do?
There are no fluff classes, right? There's no general education classes, as they're called some places, right? There's no elective. Oh, you get electives later on, but not in your 1L year. It's sort of unfortunate, but your grades for your first year of law school are determined by a very small number of exams. There's no way around it. You have to take each class sort of as the most important class of your semester, and professors will demand different things. That's why I urge you in the strongest terms. When you have quizzes in class, take them seriously. When you have what they call assessments, I have the clickers, right? Do those very seriously. Go to your professors, ask to see old exams. Be very, very. You guys are 5 minutes. You don't have to pack up yet. I'm not time yet. It's very annoying to pack up for the class is actually over. But you have to take it very seriously. Even if you bomb your first semester, this will hope. If you bomb your second semester, and I don't like saying this too loud, but it's true. Law school's not for everyone. Right? There is attrition. Not everyone will be here next year. I don't want to say it to scare you, but that's just a simple fact. Right? We have a minimum GPA. If you fall below that, you're asked to leave, and that's it. So that's why you have to really own this time and make it for what it's worth. Every day you go to class and you're not prepared means you're a little bit less surprised when your grade comes in. And again, by the way, just because you read for class doesn't mean you're actually prepared. Right? Reading a case in Old English doesn't mean you actually understood it. It means, wow, the words went into my eyes and that was it. You actually have to say, what's the holding? What are the facts? What's the issues? Thank you. What other questions you have? Yes, ma'am.
What would you recommend for like reading? And I mean in like both the organization sense and also in the kind of like how much should we really get ahead? What pace should we?
Right. Right. So let me answer the second part first, if I may. Some professors will give you very precise pages. Say on Monday, read pages 15 through 30. Right. That's what I do. Other professors say just stay 15 pages ahead. So you have to actually learn what the professor does. I will always stay on track. I don't fall behind. Other professors, they will take as much time as they need. Let me answer your question perhaps a little bit more generally. How the hell do you do this? Right. How do you find 40 hours a week of law school to read on top of going to class? And if you just look in the day, well, you have to sleep, right? You have to eat, you have to bathe, right? I mean, I'm being sarcastic, but our bar students, they're not the best smelling at the end of July, right? Yeah, I'm serious. They stop shaving, they stop, they bank their time. So you have to find ways to still, eat, exercise, be with friends, don't like harm yourself. But you have to make this as if it's a full-time job. And I don't think anyone has a full-time job here. But there are evening students here. They have a different story. I teach evening as well, but you have a full-time job. Your full-time job is to be a law student. And when you wake up in the morning, come to the law school, study in the library, don't study at home. Stay here to the end of the day, then go home. You have to study some more. Again, there are temptations for shortcuts, but at least your first semester, avoid the shortcuts. Other questions you have? Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. So the final period is very rough, and I appreciate you use the word stress. It can get stressful. The best way to avoid stress during finals is to not backload your work. You should be front loading it. By the time you get to Thanksgiving, your outline should more or less be done. Right? If you're actually studying, and by studying, learning new material in December, you're in trouble. Right? You should be able to take. I mean, some professors give sample finals. I give all mine. All mine are online. You can find them all. Right? You should start taking sample finals after the midterm. So by the time you get to December, you're coasting. Right? Now, easier said than done because there's only so many hours in the day. But if you're trying to teach yourself material in November and December, it's probably too late for you. You don't want to backload. You want to front load. What else? Yes, ma'am.
So we were kind of going to like start the outline you have that like a similar advice.
Well, let me just sort of address your question this way. What's an outline, right? Are the notes you take in class your outline? Are the notes you take at home your outline? Or is your outline the document you use to study for the exam? or is the outline the document you bring to the exam? Some exams are open book. My exam's open book, for example. So a lot depends on what you want your outline to be. But if you're trying to say that, what's your distillation? What's like your the basic thing you'll be studying from? A couple weeks in's good, but a lot of it will depend on how the exam's structured. If it's an open book versus closed book. Now, I'll tell you, my exam's open book. Bring whatever you want, won't help you, because if you're looking at your notes in the exam, you're not going to finish. So a lot really depends how the exam's structured. 3-hour exam, you will finish in 3 hours. What other questions we have? Yes, sir.
What is the final exam like?
Mine are all essay. Two essay issue spotters will take you 3 hours to write. Some do multiple choice, short answer. I do all essay. Harder to grade, but I think it's more effective. What else? Yes, ma'am.
In getting better with project practice, do you recommend practicing under the options?
Yes. So what I do is I give all my students old midterms and old final exams, and I urge them to take it under time. So the midterm is a 90-minute period, and the final is a 3-hour period. I actually do it in 90-minute, 3-minute, 3-hour blocks. Finishing on time is difficult because you may have had timed exams before, but not like a law school exam. There's pressure, to use the word that was used a minute ago, and there's a lot going on. You have to practice under time. Most of our colleagues give an in-class midterm. That sort of gives you a flavor for how it is. But again, the midterms don't actually count, or at least they usually don't count. They can count in some circumstances. So people, and trust me, if don't take the midterm always so seriously, say, oh, well, I'll figure it out in November, and you're not going to. Trust me, a lot of you I probably will not see again until graduation. I mean that sincerely. For whatever reason, the way classes are assigned, I might not see until graduation. And I always have a graduation because, Josh, you told me this at orientation. I didn't believe you, and you were right. So just trust me this one. Don't fall behind. That's the best advice I can give you as one else. Just always stay on track. And if you're in class and let's say you don't get called on a particular day, don't consider yourself lucky, right? Say, oh, phew, I skated by. That's not good. So I was going up and down the row asking, everyone in this room a question. I think I had everyone in this room. When I was calling on this person, was someone over here, were they just sort of tuning out, or were they trying to answer themselves? Even when you're not being called on, answer the question in your head. And that's a good gut check that if you're getting the questions right, okay, I'm on track. Don't just sort of sit there and say, thank God I wasn't called on. Praise the Lord, I got skipped over today. That's not good. Being called on is actually significant. And it will happen. And a couple of you were not prepared. I didn't chew you too hard. On Monday, that changes, right? You come to class on Monday, so you're not prepared. You are going to get chewed out. It's not pleasant. It can be embarrassing. And I'll be honest, some of my colleagues do it harder than other colleagues. It's going to be a matter of the preference. And if you're unprepared on multiple occasions, which usually what happens, the professor gets to know you. In other words, I don't always remember my students, but I know the bad ones. I know that sounds terrible. The ones who aren't prepared, I know them, and I seek them out and I ask them what's going on. All right, what other questions we have? Avery? How many minutes? 10 minutes, yeah?
And so I'm worried about if I have to take pictures and my computer or whatever, is it okay to look back at that if I
Right, so I'll answer the first part separately. You only have a couple minutes between classes. You have to move quick. Go to the bathroom, move on. You don't have time to sort of chat. Bring water with you, bring a snack or something. You don't have time to go to the cafeteria. So just bring whatever you got to go. Transitioning from one class to another is hard because it's very different stuff. The harder one is, let's say you do your reading on a weekend, and then you get to Thursday, and you're like, what did I read on Sunday? I don't remember. You have to sort of have, this is the question, the outline. You have to have something in front of you that will quickly refresh your memory. But if you sit there reading from an outline in class, professors will say, no go. Some professors will make you stand. I don't make you do that. But if you're on call, you're standing, which means you're not looking at your computer. So you have to know the case yourself. And it's a difficult task to sort of internalize information, have it fresh in your memory when you have two classes back to back, and on completely different topics. But you have to sort of feel it out and figure out, what do you do the morning of class, the night before class, on the on the bus ride to campus? What are you doing to sort of refresh your memory? Yes, ma'am. Shelley? Well, mine are actually very precise. So some what's called an issue spotter question, there'll be this very lengthy fact pattern. all this crazy stuff happens, and professor might say, spot all relevant issues, right? I don't do that. Mine are very precise, saying, issue 1, what happens here? Issue 2 is what happens here, right? But different professors do it differently. Some professors have rubrics they'll show you if you're looking for a certain amount of issues. I actually have a word limit on mine, so you can't even write that much. Everything's different. Professors have this different. Then Melissa? It's called office hours. No, I'm serious. Don't say chat GPT. I'll send you out right now. Oh, let me just say this. You guys don't be stupid, right? I mean this sincerely. Don't try and chat GPT an answer in class or for anything else. You will be in. And I know that Lexis has its own AI program and Westlaw. It is so risky. The actual lawyers, are being sanctioned, impose monetary fines using chat GPT because it makes stuff up. It hallucinates, right? It will make up cases and just make stuff up. You don't know enough to know what's being made up. So just don't even touch generative AI this semester at all. Just please, because I know it's gonna happen. People say, "Oh, I'm in class. Let me just GPT a question." No, don't do that. I'm sorry, I interrupted your question. But the way to assess if your essay answers are in good shape is go to office hours. I will always look over a sample essay a student gives to me up to a certain date. If they ask me the last day of class, I'm like, okay, that's too late now. But if you come to me early enough in the semester, I always look at it. Go to your professor. Show it to them. Show up. Again, you are paying an extravagant amount of money to be here. And it's not for the beautiful building and the nice seats, because these are frankly not very nice. It's to have access to us professors. That's what you're paying the money for, right? You could do an at-home study law school class, but you're paying all this money to have professors. Ask them. I've never said no to a student to kind of look over your notes. I won't say no to that. Yeah, come on by. I mean, maybe I'll say your notes are garbage, but I'll tell you. No, I mean, I'll tell you the honest answer if I think your notes are in good shape, but I will always at least give you some advice. But yeah, I mean, they're going to say, can I put my essay into GPT to grade it? Yeah, no, don't do that either. Other questions? Going once? Going twice? Yes, sir.
What you see is decent
There were a couple in prepareds. Oh, that's a warning sign. But I think we got more or less where we wanted to go today. Again, this was just a sort of a trial run. Monday's the big show. Monday's the big game, and make sure you don't fall behind. That's all I can tell you. And I'm in room 623. If you want to come by and say hi to me on Monday, I'll be around. Happy to answer your questions. But I wish you all good luck and welcome to South Texas. Thank you.